Hello there, my wonderful viewers, my wonderful vampire squad. Today I'm going to be reading some documents I found on Reddit of a girl named Maggie who is in a hospital, but she isn't even sick. Now then, lay back and let's get started. Today, my dad finally allowed me to start using Reddit. He's been very nervous about this. He even wrote me a list of subreddits not to look at. Of course, that makes me really curious, but I always do what Daddy says, so there's no way I'm actually gonna check any of them out. So, hello Reddit, how are you? My name is Maggie. I live in a huge house with my dad, and a lot of other people he says need to be under close observation, and close to medical treatment all the time. When I asked him what that meant, he told me we all need to be watched by doctors and nurses here. Just in case something happens to us, they can take care of that. Apparently, we're all sick in one way or another. Personally, I feel fine, so I'm not sure why I'm here at all. I've been asking Dad, but he never gives me an actual answer. He just kind of talks around the subject whenever I bring it up. Another weird thing is that none of the other patients have their parents with them. I think they're all older than me though, so I guess it's not that strange. Dad is around me literally all the time. Well, not all the time, but quite often. When he's not with me, he talks to nurses and doctors, or goes into his office. He works here too, you know. Once a day, I have to talk to a doctor myself. Her name is Ellie, and she's very nice to me, but not to Dad. She never lets me stay when she talks to me. Apart from that, I like our daily appointments though. Her room is very nice. There's a lot of photos of ducks on the walls, and she even has a stuffed duck on her desk. She lets me hold it every time I talk to her. Ducks are her favorite animals. Dr. Ellie never really examines me. She just asks questions. Today, for example, she told Dad to wait for me outside and had me sit down across from her and asked how I was feeling. That's always her first question. I said I was well and asked to hold the duck. Quack, quack. She gave it to me and then asked how my day had been so far, what I'd had for breakfast, that sort of thing. It was just small talk. Then she asked me if I had that dream again. See, I have these nightmares sometimes. They're really fuzzy and unclear. But basically I dream of men in weird dark clothes. They always have these masks that cover their faces and only leave the mouths and eyes out. Sometimes I dream that they're holding me down and that one of them keeps shouting stuff at me while I'm crying. Not last night, I said to her. That makes you nightmare free 20 nights in a row, she replied. She was smiling, but she didn't sound too happy. I'm sure you don't miss them. They scare me, yeah, for a little while. But all in all, they're just dreams. That's what Daddy says. Dr. Ellie frowned. That's what your daddy says, huh? She repeated. Right. I know I ask you this a lot as well, but has your dad ever done anything to hurt you? I shook my head no. Never? Or maybe not hurt you, but did he tell you odd things? Or did he do anything to make you feel strange in any way? I shook my head no again. Dr. Ellie didn't look satisfied. Well, that's good. Why would my dad do something like that? I asked. Never mind it. I just thought I'd ask. A lot of kids have very mean parents after all, she replied. That's sad, but my dad isn't like that. That's great, Maggie. That's all I wanted to hear. You don't like my dad, do you? Dr. Ellie tensed up a bit. That's not true. Your dad and I have a history, though, so we go way back, so to speak. And there's a lot I can't tell you because it's, well, between him and me and our colleagues, you know? I told her I didn't get that at all, but she didn't want to tell me anything else. Our time was up after that anyway, so I got back out where Dad was, waiting for me. I saw him and Ellie glare at each other for a split second through the open window. But the really weird thing happened afterwards. I wanted to take a nap so Dad came with me to tuck me in. He stayed by my bed to tuck me in. He stayed by my bedside until I was already half asleep before turning to leave. I heard him shut the door behind him, and just 1 second later, he gasped. I sat up and immediately startled. What are you doing here? I heard him hiss at whoever was outside with him. Could ask you the same thing. I thought you'd agreed on giving her space. The voice was Dr. Ellie's. She didn't sound like she usually does when she talks to me, though. She sounded angry. Jack, what exactly do you think you're doing? Can we please take this somewhere else? Dad replied in a hushed tone. What, are you afraid she'll hear us? Of course I am. Move along now. We're going to your office. Are we? Because I'm staying right here. Dad sighed deeply. I don't have time for this. Why would I want to deal with your crap in the first place? Then maybe I should talk to her myself. This had already been going on for long enough anyways. The hell you will, because I heard my door being locked. I have the only key to her room as of now. She's asleep in there, so if you try to talk to her from out here like an idiot, I'll tell her it was all a dream. Meanwhile, I'll be off and get security while when I come back, you'll be rid of your job. I promise. Dad sounded really casual when he said this. But with that kind of concealed rage people carry in their tone sometimes. Dr. Ellie didn't say anything for a little while. When she spoke up again, she sounded almost sad. This is sick. You are so sick, Jack. Oh, you think? Well, I don't really care, to be honest, and before you ask, no one else does. In fact, do you really think our bosses gave her to you? You, who graduated rock bottom of your class, the most inexperienced shrink of everyone they've got, because they want her to get better? Noticing he'd raised his voice, Dad suddenly fell silent. I could hear him press up against the door. Maggie? He whispered softly. I didn't respond. I gave him no sign I was awake at all. Something about what I had just heard made me feel like I shouldn't. Dad let out a sigh of relief. I'm gonna get lunch now, he said to Dr. Ellie quieter this time. You should think about what I said, though. Really, really think about it. I heard him walk off, followed by the clacking of Dr. Ellie's heels on the floor. Not sticking around, after all? Good choice, Dad said, just before they were too far away for me to hear them anymore. I tried to sleep a little bit, but I kept thinking about the two of them. None of what they'd been talking about made any sense to me. Eventually, Dad came back to get me. I was really happy when he did because I was getting bored. He took me out to the hall where everyone eats and told me to get myself something on my own, since he had to get back to work. I wasn't happy about it, but I saw Jonah sitting at a table in the back, so once Dad was off, I went to sit with him. Jonah is my friend. I love talking to him, but I only do it when Dad isn't around. My father really hates him for some reason. Once the two of them actually got into a fight, like a real fist fight. A couple of the nurses had to break it off. Jonah's about Dad's age. He's taller though and very strong, but not scary. He lost his right leg although. He won't tell me how, and the people here have been building a new one for him. They're still working on it and need to get him used to it first. So he can't go anywhere without crutches. That's also why I was so scared when Dad attacked him that one time. Since Jonah was trying to hit him back, I thought he was going to trip and fall over, but he could actually stand for the whole minute without his crutches. Them fighting was terrible, but I overheard one of the nurses later saying that at least now they know Jonah is adapting to the mechanical leg. I've asked him thousands of times why he doesn't get along with my dad, but he always dodges the question. I like him anyways. He has this really nice smile, and when we talk, he doesn't treat me like a dumb kid, more like we're old friends. Hey, Mags, he said when I sat down across from him. He was holding a large slice of pizza. There was a carton with more sitting in front of him, and he nodded down at it. You want some? I thanked him and took a slice of my own. How are you? I'm alright. It's pizza day. Doesn't get much better than this, does it? Not around here, at least. He hummed as he ripped a large bite out of the slice in his hand. Do they make the pizza here? Jonah laughed. Heck no, they don't. If they did, it would just be as cruddy as the rest of their food. But that's hospitals for you. Wait, so this is a hospital? Never thought of it as one. Sorta. Sorry, I just forgot I'm not supposed to talk to you about that. He rolled his eyes at an imaginary bystander. What do you mean by that? Nothing, just something's going for way too long. One of these days I might just forget altogether. Forget what? To keep my mouth shut. This freaked me out for a little while, but he wouldn't say anything else, so I stopped prodding. We ate in relatively comfortable silence, but Jonah ate faster than me and about twice as much. When there was nothing left, he wiped his mouth and smiled at me. Come over here, I've got something to show you. I quickly ducked under the table and emerged on Jonah's side where I sat down. He pulled up his prosthetic leg on the bench beside us and pulled up the bottom of his sweatpants. I almost jumped in my seat. Jonah's mechanical leg is black and made of some shiny metal, or at least I think so. But what he showed me looked completely different. There was skin over it and it looked rather soft. Oh my God, I muttered. It's amazing, right? I can't even feel anything about this anymore. I can move it perfectly. It looks exactly like it used to. Well, I used to have hair on it, but that's fine. That's so great! Congrats! I know, they finally finished it. I know we were off to a rocky start at first. Well, you saw me, you knew I was struggling, but now, well, this was worth the wait. I still keep my crutches at hand because I don't want to test my luck just yet, but I'm really positive about this. My doc says he wants me relaxing and getting used to it for 6 more months. And then I can start working again. Can't wait. Wait, what do you work as? Oh, I did the same thing as you. Huh? What? I looked at him, my eyes wide with confusion. I've never had a job. Jonah sighed. Yes, right. How could I forget? You're being kind of weird, I admitted. Am I? Sorry, I don't even notice anymore. Not long after, I saw my dad enter the hall. I was still sitting with Jonah, so I immediately started freaking out and went to hide under the table. But my friend grabbed my arm. Gently, but firmly to keep me seated. My father proceeded towards us with a deep frown on his face. He didn't even acknowledge Jonah's presence when he came to a halt in front of us. Maggie, princess, did you eat? His voice was strained, even though he was trying to hide it. I nodded. Dad raised his brows. Good. Sorry I was gone for so long. I'll be off again soon, too. But I got the computer room wide open for you so you can play in there. Thanks, Dad. I scrambled down from the bench, walked over to him, and took his hand. Before we left, he addressed Jonah. I was stunned, to be honest. How are you adjusting? Even Jonah himself seemed puzzled. Can't complain. You did a good job in this one, man. My father ignored the compliment. I was a little surprised. I didn't know Dad was one of the people who had created Jonah's leg. I'd known he worked here, sure, but not until now. I didn't really think about what he actually did exactly. We turned to leave, and Dad walked me to the computer room. This room, as the name implies, is filled with computers. The patients may use it from time to time, but they have to share with research assistants. Dad says it's because they need to work, but they aren't important enough to have their own office. That's when Dad explained Reddit to me and gave me the list of subreddits I can't look at everything. The site is really cool. Feels like there's everything the internet has to offer here. That aside, I actually got curious, so I did some research on prosthetics such as Jonah has. It seems they're not a very common thing outside this place. They really makes me wonder a bit, but just another odd thing about this hospital, I guess. But the strangest thing, the reason why I'm writing this, happened afterwards. I didn't feel like surfing the web anymore, so I went to my room to change clothes so I could go take a walk outside the yard. I opened the door to find something lying on the floor. It was a photo. Surprised, I bent down to pick it up. My stomach turned when I laid eyes on the picture, and I felt bile rise in my throat. It was a monster. It sounds very childish and very rude saying that, since I know very well it must have been a person at the same point, but it didn't look like one anymore. They were lying in a hospital bed, not unlike those I'd seen in some of the rooms here in the building. But the sheets were soaked with blood, and some other yellowish fluid. Their lower half was covered by a blanket. From what I could see, there was hardly any skin left on their body. Instead, it hung shredded off their limbs and torso. It reminded me of what it looks like when deer shed their skin on their antlers. The lower part of one of the person's arms was missing, leaving behind only a stump from which a broken bone protruded. The person's scalp was torn up badly, and chunks of the hair were hanging down from bits and pieces of it. The worst thing, however, were the eyes. Don't get me wrong, the eyes were the only thing about them that were left unharmed, but they were wide open and looking right at me. The person had looked into the camera when the picture had been taken, this mangled mess of a body. It wasn't a corpse. At the time of the photo, it had to been alive. I doubled over and threw up on the floor. The picture slid out of my hand. I sat there for a few minutes, retching and weeping. The door was still open a crack, so it was no surprise when one of the male nurses, I think his name's Ethan, who was passing by and noticed me and came in. He found me just kneeling there beside that awful picture, grabbed me by the arm and pulled me to my feet. He half carried me to the mess hall where he sat me down on a bench. He tried to talk to me, but I couldn't hear what he said. I could hear his lips moving, but it sounded like his voice was nothing but faint sound of static somewhere far off in the distance. I was panting and crying. I remember thinking it was really hard to breathe. It sounds silly now, but I thought I was going to die. That's just how terrified I was. Two of the nurses came up to us. One of them was Cassandra, another friend of mine. She pushed through to me and quickly made me swallow a tiny pill. Then she gently grabbed my ankles and lifted my legs onto the bench, turning me around in the process. When she spoke, her voice was much clearer than Ethan's. She was told very calm, and just the sound of her speaking, softly telling me to breathe more slowly, was enough to soothe my nerves a little. Meanwhile, Ethan and some other lady had jogged off in different directions. One was heading for the hallway my room is in, and the other to where the doctors have all their offices, presumably to find Dad. I fell asleep before they came back. When I woke up, I was in my room again, lying in bed. It's very late at night now, as me writing this. But after having slept so much already, I guess it's no surprise that I'm kind of restless. One of the nurses must have removed the picture because I can't even find it anywhere. I snuck out to the computer room again because I didn't really feel like staying where I was. So that's where I am now, but I'm just so confused. I've never questioned this place before, but now I feel like something really bad is going on here. I feel like Elle and Jonah both wanted to tell me and that the picture has something to do with it. Worse yet, I'm pretty sure Dad knows. And there you have it. Part 1 of the Maggie Chronicles. The hospital is not seeming like the best place for her, but I guess we'll find out in future chapters. Am I right? Be sure to like and subscribe and follow the author of this story down in the description below. And I'll see you, my vampire gang, in the next video.